What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. If you find yourself here, that probably means you've either done your ACL or you know somebody who has. I did my ACL about a couple of weeks ago, so I thought I'd start this vlog to be able to tell you guys what it feels like, what the initial injury was, what kind of symptoms I was having, and moving forwards with the surgery, sort of pre-surgery, post-surgery, and then the rehab and getting myself back to full capacity. So I hope you stick along for the journey, and hopefully we can show you that everything's going to be okay. So how did I do the injury? So I was playing indoor soccer. I was playing it several times a week. Just went in once for a tackle, and it was a bit of an awkward tackle at speed. Felt my knee, it's my left knee obviously, twist inwards, and I heard the pop. So one of the most common ways to know you've done your ACL is a loud kind of pop or a bang in your knee when it snaps. So I heard that, knew something was up, went off immediately. The pain was quite sharp, as you'd expect. I stopped playing and got support to get off the court, and just sort of sat there and immediately started the RICE process to get it elevated and make sure the swelling wasn't too bad. That night it was quite uncomfortable, quite difficult to shower after a hot and sweaty game, but I was still able to kind of hobble around the place, limping, trying to keep weight off it where I could. Sleeping wasn't too bad once I was laying down and had the weight off it. You might find that yourself, your symptoms may vary, everybody's different. But the next day I called my physio and went and got in and saw him as soon as possible. So at the physio, he initially asked what have I done to my knee. I explained what happened. Unfortunately I couldn't tell him the exact mechanism of what happened in the tackle. It all happened quite quickly, and as soon as I sort of heard that pop and felt that pain in my knee, obviously my mind was focused on that as opposed to exactly how it twisted and whatever in the tackle. So the physio did a series of tests, just checking the various ligaments in my knee, and everything seemed okay. Flexibility was probably one of the bigger issues for me, trying to bend my knee up, bring my heel to my bum. But aside from that, the pain wasn't remarkably intense. Bending my foot outwards, out of my knee, hurt a bit as well. But yeah, the tests that he performed, one of the critical ones for your ACL is a test to see if your shin can move forward relative to your knee more so than it should normally be allowed to. But none of that was showing positive for my ACL, and the areas where I had the pain, which was mostly down the outside of my knee, weren't consistent with an ACL injury. So we arranged a follow-up appointment for a few days later, just to let it settle down a bit and see where things were at. And over that weekend I just took it easy, kept up the rest, kept up the elevation, icing it, that sort of thing to keep the swelling down. And like I said, the pain was bearable. It was never particularly intense or throbbing or agonizing. It was more just an ache if I moved it a certain way. And obviously it got worse, you know, if I was using it too often. So cut to the next physio trip. Went in again, did the series of tests again. One thing I had noticed in those few days off was that when I fully straightened my leg under load, my knee would get to that point of almost being fully straight, but then I felt like I had to push it through that very last bit for it to click fully straight. And I say click because when I did it, there was some sort of internal grinding or rubbing or crunching, something inside my knee. So I made sure to sort of tell the physio about that straight up in the second follow-up appointment. And I got him to put his hand on it and to feel the movement, and yeah, his reaction wasn't very good. He sort of had that sort of look on his face. So he sent me for an MRI, and I went and booked that in. Unfortunately, that took a few days. Had to get the doctor's referral to get the MRI scan, and yeah, so a few days later the MRI results came in, and I got a call from my physio. I was just sitting there working at home with my leg up, and fully expecting him to say that it was the meniscus, or that everything was sort of, you know, that's what his initial thoughts were, because it wasn't testing positive for the ACL, and the pain wasn't sort of consistent where an ACL injury usually is. Sure enough, the result was a completely ruptured ACL. See if I can upload an image of the MRI. When I first found out that it was my ACL, I knew a little bit about it because one of my close friends, also from soccer, tore his ACL about a week before I did mine. And I'd sort of learned about the rehab and that sort of thing from him, or the time frames, and I actually felt ill. I felt sick because I live an active life. I like to drive, I like to go surfing, I like to go bike riding, play indoor soccer, you name it, I'll do it. And when he told me that, and I understood that ACL usually requires surgery and anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 months recovery with rehab, I was quite upset, quite down. It was for me as well such a shock, because my initial testing with the physio had never indicated that it was an ACL. The pain wasn't consistent with an ACL. I was expecting a tear in the meniscus, which is about 6 weeks with surgery. And the ACL just threw me completely off guard. I didn't see it coming, and it was a fair bit to deal with. So yeah, spoke with the physio. He said that the reason that it probably wasn't showing positive for the ACL in the testing was that the hamstrings were quite tight, and that they were kind of holding the shin in place, doing the job that the ACL usually would. It had all kind of locked up and everything. So the next step was, of course, to go and book myself in. I had to go, and the physio recommended a surgeon that he's worked with previously, one that he had a high regard for. So I went and booked myself in with the surgeon. So in that 1 week gap between getting the MRI results and being able to go and see the surgeon, the physio gave me some exercises to do. As you can see, I still haven't had the surgery yet, and I'm able to drive manual as well. I'm able to get myself out and about, go around and do my grocery shopping. You know, I'm not particularly trying to do any intense activities, not trying to do running, minimizing twisting as much as I can, because that I've felt pain when I've accidentally done that before. But day-to-day life, aside from not being able to do all the activities that I normally do, is relatively manageable. The pain isn't severe. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it about a 4. And even then, that's not constant. That's sort of worst for me. Like at the moment, I barely feel it. So it's certainly manageable. And so yeah, this last week, just again keeping up the ice, doing the exercises from the physio. Some of that includes squatting as well, which does make it a little bit sore for me as well. There was a fair bit of kind of fluid, blood build up at the top here. So when I bent my knee under load to do squatting, that would all kind of like compress and condense and start to stiffen up. But I've found that, you know, if you sort of push through that a little bit, there's not really a lot more damage you can do. It's an I-39. So prior to doing this injury, I was leading quite an active life, and one of the things I want to make sure is that throughout this process, the goal is always to get back to that same level of activity. I don't want to live a restricted life because of a knee injury. I want to make sure that whatever it takes, whether that's longer rehab, whether that's, you know, getting the surgery, whatever it is, that I'll be able to get back to that full strength and full capacity to be doing what I love. You do hear stories about people saying that you can live with the physio, or live with the injury, that you can build up the supporting muscles around your knee, and it not have much of an impact on your day-to-day life. And that may be an option if you live that kind of sedentary life. But a lot of the time your ACL injury is done playing some sort of sport. So the people who are having these injuries are quite active. And for me personally, living a sedentary life, a restricted life due to this injury for the foreseeable future isn't an option. So I'll be doing whatever I can to make sure that we get this fixed, get back on track, and get back to doing what I love. So prior to getting the surgery, the physios recommended doing a bunch of exercises, which is commonly known as prehab. So the idea with that is, the stronger you go into the surgery, the easier it will be with the rehab on the other side. Obviously with an injury like this, you're not using all the strength and muscles that you normally would in day-to-day life or day-to-day activities. So it's important to do these exercises to make sure that you're in the best possible position going into the surgery, and when you come out, hopefully it'll be easier. For me, I'm looking to get the surgery done as soon as possible, because that just means that it's in a better position going in. I still retain some of that original strength that I had when I was being active, but also B, because it means I get to start the recovery process sooner, and in the end it means I'll be back doing what I love sooner. So I definitely recommend doing your exercises and trying to get to the bottom of it, get to see your surgeon, talk to your physio, and get everything done as soon as you can, because the longer you leave it, the harder it's going to be. So just to recap the video, when I first did it at the time, there was a loud pop, an instant sharp pain around my knee, and immediately afterwards I couldn't walk on it or put weight on it. Had to get supported off the field. In the first 24 to 48 hours, I personally didn't have a whole lot of swelling. The pain eased off, and the pain was more localized around the outside of my knees, which ended up to be bruising. And following that, in that first sort of week, 2 week, started doing the prehab exercises. Those helped. It feels for me like they loosen up the knee, and it's also good for me to know that I can still use the knee, that it's still functional. As you've seen, I can still drive, I can still walk, It's not normal walking because I can't fully straighten my knee without that grinding, but all in all the pain is manageable. Throughout the whole time I haven't taken any painkillers or anti-inflammatories. I don't really like taking medication if I don't need to. So that gives you an indication of the levels of pain. If it was severe agony for me, then obviously I'd have to take something, but obviously it's going to be difficult. Difficult, yes, but different for everybody. And you know, sometimes there's other injuries associated with doing your ACL, your meniscus, or your lateral and internal ones. But you know, the end goal for everybody is the same, to get back to that full strength, and I hope you stick along for the journey. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. The next video I'll probably be talking about the visit with the surgeon, and showing you some of the prehab exercises I've been doing. And then following that, we'll probably go into the day of the surgery, before and after, how I'm feeling, what it looks like, all that sort of thing. So stay tuned, and until then, take care of yourself and stay safe. Thanks guys, bye bye.